Open Economies Uganda. I'm a member of Open Economics Uganda, a youth-led organization that aims to promote the advancement of economic knowledge and understanding among the youth and bridge the gap between economic theory and its application in solving real-life economic problems. This event is brought to you by Rethinking Economics, Makerere University, and Open Economics Uganda. Rethinking Economics, Makerere is a local rethinking economics group in Makerere and a member of the global Rethinking Economics movement. I would also like to, I'll just take this opportunity to thank our partners who have made this event possible, that is Exploring Economics, also a German economics student movement that aims to make economics more holistic. But as we move ahead, just one thing to note, I wanted to just advise that in case you have any comment or any question, please put it in the chat, and then as we end the session, we'll come back to it and respond to you. So today's theme is the global economic crisis and the post-pandemic economic outlook, focusing on the Ugandan economy. So as you know, the pandemic era, the post-pandemic era has been dominated by governments and also those involved in running economies, focusing on issues or policies to enable the economies to recover. However, the measures that have been taken by these countries there have been measures that were taken by these different countries to mitigate the immediate health impact of the pandemic, and these created left the economies in an unhealthy state. So the measures that so all over the world, economies are implementing policies to stimulate the growth and revive economies all over the world. But however, they have been met by a number of challenges, like inflation, food shortages, some people have lost businesses, unemployment. And so today we are going to be focusing on, or we're going to have a deeper dive into those challenges and an overall impact on the different economies, but specifically focusing in Uganda. And what solutions have been applied or can be applied to enable us achieve a complete recovery and sustainable economic transformation. So today, we have two senior economists who are going to be our panelists, and they're going to guide us and give us their views on what is their take on the topic. The first is Mr. Wilson Asiimwe. Is a senior economic modeler at the Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development in Uganda, in the Microeconomic Policy Department. He is also a research fellow at the Macroeconomic and Finance Management Institute for Eastern and Southern Africa, where he tutors short-term courses in macroeconomic modeling. His expertise in microeconomic modeling and forecasting, including computable general equilibrium and macro simulations modeling. He holds a master's in science and development and natural resource economics from the Norwegian University of Life Science in Norway. He holds a master's of science in financial engineering from the World Quant University, USA, and a bachelor's of economics degree from Makerere University. Our second panelist is Mr. Peter Babyenda, as an assistant lecturer, School of Economics, Makerere University, under the College of Business and Management Sciences. He is a student is a PhD student at the University of Nairobi, Kenya. His area of specializations are economics, econometrics, and environmental economics. He also serves as a research fellow at the Policy Engagement Specialist for Inclusive Green Economy at EFD Mark Center. Again, just to emphasize, you can use the chat to put forward your questions and comments as we begin. I think I can now open the floor to the panelists to speak. I would like to start with Mr. Peter Babyenda to give us a brief. And then later on, I'll make a few comments and then we can go to Mr. Wilson. Thank
you. Thank you so much, the host of today's event. I think you are getting me clearly. I also want to join you in the first congratulating you for hosting this event, and two, all those who have made this possible, and three, all those who have made time and made it a point to attend this brief presentation. And then also thank my colleague, the friend from Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development, Mr. Asiimwe, for finding time to join our students and we discuss this. So mine, I will just give just a few highlights as I was requested. I've made some few slides here. I want to thank the moderators who introduced me and I will briefly talk about the introduce, and they also talk about the situation analysis challenges, largely from the academic point of view. And since my colleague from the Ministry of Finance is here, I will leave most of the things to him. But also I was requested to talk about economics, especially how we are training our economists, the younger economists, and then conclude. So in terms of introduction, it is true the global economy is struggling, and largely from the COVID-19 pandemic. The COVID-19 pandemic that started from China hit the global economy seriously. You remember the airline industry closed for almost a year, and this affected a lot of movement of resources, movement of people. The tourism sector was deeply hit. Some airline companies collapsed, and therefore many lost jobs, foreign exchange, and worse, some governments collapsed. Then as we are trying to recover from COVID-19 pandemic, and by the way, still there for us here in Uganda, for example, COVID-19, you remember we had the longest school closure in the whole world. And you saw what happened. Teachers had no jobs, that's one. Two, the school, when the school is operating, there are so many people who benefit from that. Look at the scholars, they rent houses, they buy food, and so that means all that chain had been closed. And you saw people losing properties to loan, those who had gotten loans. Then some younger girls were pregnanted. All those are costs. So as we are trying to recover from that, then there comes the Russia-Ukraine war, which has greatly disorganized the global supply chain. So we have had problems of the movement of essential goods, such as oil products, grain. We saw chapati prices. You look at our ghetto people. Okay, prices increased in the hotels. In some areas where, like here in Uganda, where prices remained stable, the size was reduced. Why? Because the grains were not moving well, the wheat. And then the climate change. You remember we have just recovered from a very long dry spell. that affected agricultural products. And that's why you are seeing now, we're experiencing a big problem of increased food prices, which has contributed significantly in rising the inflation to now 2-digit, which we are talking about. And that one has another problem. We are going to see the interest rates change. The lenders, the borrowers are going to suffer the more, and this one might shrink the economy. Then also, the big economies, these things I'm talking about, especially the COVID-19 and the Russia-Ukraine war, has not only affected the small economies. Actually, the small economies are being affected due to spillover effects from the big economies. The US, you remember the inflation, they were struggling, the euro, the China economy, all these ones. And these ones, once these ones are crumbling, it means also the small economies like us who depend on foreign currencies, we are going to suffer the more. So the world's economic outlook projects from Asiimwe projected that the growth, the world growth, the global growth would shrink from 6.1 to 3.2% in this year, during this year, and then later on actually fall more to 2.9. And we are seeing this one might actually continue to reduce. And these problems have caused another bigger problem of reducing the purchasing power. The purchasing power, the households cannot purchase, cannot buy, and that means even producers will produce and then they'll have no demanders. And that one affects output, affects revenue. I feel sorry now for the people working in revenue offices, URA, who have targets to hit and businesses at their lowest point. For Uganda's case, I've already been talking about that we are hit hard by COVID-19, especially the lockdowns. We had the longest lockdowns, and then the school closure, I've talked about that one. But however, on the positive note, COVID-19 propelled the use of mobile money. The use of mobile money and e-cars, e-trade, e-commerce increased during this pandemic, that the younger people especially would advertise their goods on using e-commerce. And then we saw like this, this border, or am I forgetting the name? It grew up because people would easily send them, bring me this good from this supermarket. Although this one was also affected by closure of some social media platform like Facebook. Now, as we are we knew we are going to recover. Actually, we have been recovering very well, and largely because our economy is nature dependent. So since it is nature dependent, once the natural conditions are favorable, then expect Ugandans to have some money. The farmers will sell, they will get good output. But if the conditions are not good, then we suffer more, like what we are seeing now. So the inflation price during inflation time, COVID-19 times, our inflation was very low. It averaged at around 2.2%. But now it is increasing as a result of Ukraine war, Russia-Ukraine war, but also the dry spell that affected agricultural products. And actually during the inflation times, the monetary committee, the monetary policy committee, the central bank kept on reducing the CBR, reducing it. But now we see because of the inflation which is happening now, as the result of Ukraine war, there has been tightening of the monetary policy, and not only the tightening of the monetary policy by increasing the CBR, which will later actually I've seen banks are already communicating, saying we are going to increase the interest rate on your loans, and that means the borrowers are going to be hit more, and the businesses, we may see many businesses close, or people's properties being taken as a result of failing to pay. But also the fiscal side, the Asiimwe side, they have also tried to tighten, saying we should only spend on priority sector, the salaries, no money for development projects. And that's through, trying to shrink the government expenditure. Why? They want to control inflation. Maybe we could say they want to control inflation. Or two, maybe there is no money. Maybe the government has no money and therefore has to postpone some non-priority sectors. But this is affecting the purchasing power, the aggregate demand. And more so, right now, as we thought that we are now trying to recover, there is another thing that is coming on, and that is Ebola, which is likely to worsen things. So do we have more restrictive policies, like say lockdown, another lockdown, and so on? These ones might worsen actual the situation. So I talked about the Russia-Ukraine war, but I wanted here just to specifically give how it is actually affecting the economy. It is largely affecting our economies due to uncertainties, creating uncertainty. No one knows when will the war end. The longer the war lasts, the greater these effects will continue. And once people are uncertain, they cannot invest. That one will affect consumption and job creation. And we are likely going to see many governments, especially democratic governments, collapse. You have already seen UK. I think since the war, we are seeing 3 prime ministers now. There was the other country which collapsed. We saw another European country which also collapsed. And then others are losing majority in elections. So increased the people, governments are becoming unpopular and unpopular due to these wars. And this one affects investments in those countries, which actually increases the problem. So, and this one largely resulted from the sanctions that were imposed on Russia and the destabilization of the global supply chain. So goods cannot move. You saw the Russian tanks had stopped goods from moving until the UN had to negotiate. This affected world trade. And what we might also see is that we may see now new blocks coming up. We may see the 2 blocks, the one US bloc, and then also the one, the Russia and the China bloc, which might have effects. So we have said that this one, especially locally here, might increase the crime rates. We have seen them. I think you have seen crime rates are increasing in Uganda. Cases of safety, breaking, and so on. Because once the cost of living, people lose jobs and so on, then the income inequality widens. People have to survive, and unfortunately, others will survive by stealing from others. And this scares away the investors. This is what I've talked about. So, what are measures? There's some of the measures which have been put in place by the government to try and address some of this. We have seen that the Ministry of Agriculture is trying to identify the large-scale farmers so that they can assist them to produce more, and also do some studies to see whether they can start growing other foods that we used to import. But also here, remember, agriculture has been hit, and another thing, the scarcity of fertilizer, because we usually import fertilizer largely from Russia and Ukraine, and you can see the fertilizer price on the market is very high. SMEs have been given seed capital to invest. Then also, as a result, government is trying to increase investments in electronic transport. I think now we have like 4 buses that are moving, and they are promising to add more money to e-Kiv so that they can produce more. Other challenges apart from the war and the COVID-19 and now the Ebola, we have the M23 war in neighboring Congo, which is increasing the refugees. it is that trade. We trade so much with DRC. Now we cannot pass and go to DRC. Then the uncertain climatic conditions, which will affect our farmers, but also the Russia-Ukraine war, we don't know when is it going to last. And now the increasing cases of Ebola, with now having cases of Ebola in Kampala. This is it is a very big hindrance to tourism. Tourism is a sensitive sector. I'm very sure now many tourists have cancelled their flights to Uganda. I have also seen some Ugandans who are scheduled to go and attend some workshops in the US. They have been denied their movement has been cancelled because of Ebola. And this means money, we are losing foreign exchange in that case. And our currency is going to eventually depreciate more if the central bank doesn't intervene. But to intervene up to when? There's a certain point they cannot intervene anymore. Now, as I conclude, for the younger economists, yes, the younger economists, you are the next economists. You are the people who will substitute Asiimwe. And so we need to put more effort in training you, not only training you in theory, giving you notes, reading, but I think it is now time that we should do train you the applications of what you learn from class. We should invite people like Asiimwe to talk to you once in a while, the planner, so that you see what these people do. We should bring back those talks. I know because of the numbers. In that School of Economics, we lost one course, Bachelor's of Development Economics. I think this is the last year of that course, but we are trying, again, the school is trying to revamp that course, but now more revised to meet the current requirements. I've talked about that, but also you as students, the way now you have started with this kind of gathering discussion, I think this is the way to go. We discuss and share ideas. Ideas are generated through discussions. When we are discussing, this one says this, then new ideas are generated. I think this is the way to go. But also what we are noting is that some students, of course, have that hatred of economics. They think economics is hard. Economics is, there's a time they were calling FEMA a faculty of retakers. But no, these things can be done. We know the Minister of Education tried to now make those who do economics at high school must also do some maths or mathematics. I think this is improving. But these are doable. And economics, there will always remain economics, that we cannot go low so that everybody should pass. No, there should be, for you to come out as an economist, you must have really gone through this rigor training. But we are saying we can complement that with inviting having seminar series, inviting those who in the field come and talk to you, from the Central Bank, World Bank, Minister of Finance, National Planning Authority, UGOS and others, where but also sending you for internship in these areas. I know the internship has been affected so much in these 3 years because of COVID-19, and you have been writing research proposals or what, but internship is very important because that's when you see how things are done. How will you now apply what you are getting in class to the actual thing? But also, we as the instructors, we also need to Ugandanize the subject. As we are teaching these theories, we should try to bring them to our situation here, the Uganda situation, so that we don't teach complex issues, which seem to scare away the students. But if you can relate to our problems here, I think this will make it more better. So I've also provided here some of the, which I talked about already, some of the ways we can do to address some of the problems. I talked about this, and also what I can say here is empowering you, the younger people, so that you are the next people, so that you can have those skills and expertise to enable you plan for this country better and serve Ugandan as well. I thank you, and thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you very much, Mr. Peter Babyenda. He is a lecturer at School of Economics, and he's actually responsible for training the economists for the future of Uganda. Now, a few things I pick from what he talks about. He says that small economies are struggling mainly because of the larger challenges in the challenges in large economies, and that is very evident because as the world become more of a global economy, it's very hard to avoid some of these challenges. But also going ahead to recognize that however much the pandemic was a very big challenge to economies, but it led to a birth of new sectors in the economy, especially the transformation and growth of fintech, the fintech industry and the technology industry as a whole. The consumption of fintech services has actually drastically increased because of how helpful it was in the pandemic. So that's a great observation. And also looking at how the environment affects the economy. As a person who has had an involvement within the agriculture industry myself, I really see the relevance of how the relationship between the environment and the economy is very clear here. Thank you very much. And I think now I can move on to Mr. Wilson Asiimwe to also give us his take on the subject. Thank you.
Once again, good morning to everyone. I hope you can hear me. You can hear me? Could someone confirm?
Alvin? Yes, we can hear you. Yes,
we can thank you. Oh, thank you. Okay, I will share my slide. Then we'll go through it. You can see my slide.
Yes, we can.
Okay. Okay, if that's so. Yeah, once again, I'm Wilson Asiimwe. I'm a senior economic modeler at the Ministry of Finance in the macroeconomic policy department. I blend my presentation since majority of the listeners we have students. That means I have to blend between the economic theory and also practice, and also evidence-based, and also the status and what is the government doing to have a positive or a better economic outlook. So I'll go straight to the outline. I'll begin with the introduction. Then before I go to what government is doing and the shocks, how they have affected the economy, and how is the economy being held together to make sure that the outlook is positive. I'll look at the theoretical background, largely looking at the founding fathers of economics. What were they thinking on what we should do in such a situation? And what we are doing now, and which father are we following? An economist will have to be open-minded to make sure that you're not locked down by or inclined to only one inclination of economic thinking. You have to be dynamic in a way that each challenge that hits the economy comes with a unique prescription on how to solve that challenge. So we play around with what our founding fathers hypothesized, and we try to align them to what other economies are doing, and then also then we design smart policies that could help the economy to keep together. Then I also look at the pathways of global economic shocks. Here we will be looking at the shocks. How do they impact the domestic economy? That helps us in giving us information on how to prescribe government response to make sure the economy remains stable. Then I also look at empirical evidence, some studies which have been done and what they say about government interventions. And also then we shall look at the performance of the Uganda post-COVID. Then we shall look at government interventions, and then we will look at the outlook. Then I'll conclude. Then I'll rush in case I have a question. I think maybe questions can be raised maybe at the end of the presentation, but let me use a few minutes to take you through. I'll begin with the introduction. In the financial year 2021, the COVID-19 pandemic remained a serious risk, and the effects have continued up to now as different sectors of the economy and also even other economies are also recovering. And because the lockdowns all over the world disrupted the trade and also the supply of commodities was disrupted. As we say now, as you know from university, it's very important to, before you do economic analysis, to think that in a way that one economy like Uganda, it's a small open economy. What do I mean small open economy? A small open economy means that there are variables or there are things where you are a taker, you don't have decisions on. For instance, our industries import intermediate inputs. These are inputs which come in semi-finished or raw materials, which we add value using our industries to produce final goods. For instance, the iron sheets we make, the steel rolls which are imported. So when there is a shock globally and the supply is not consistent, it will affect the production of iron sheets and iron bars, and that can lead to increase in the price of such products. So as you have seen recently that the wheat prices have been going up, and the oil prices because of the Malaysian and Indonesia supply shortages, and the wheat which was coming from Russia and also Ukraine. So you find that the price of bread goes up. We are used to having bread at 3,200, 3,500. Now you get bread above 5,000. And this is not because the domestic producers are increasing prices. It's because of the intermediate inputs which make up bread. The costs are going up. So which you can call at the university cost push inflation. So I proceed and go at a global restrictive monetary fiscal policy actions we are also undertaken and to curb down the inflationary pressures which we are going up, and these largely we are cost push inflations, and also the effects on the supply chains, and also we have the geopolitical tensions in Eurasia, which is also affecting, as we explained the previous examples. Then within COVID period and even the post-COVID period up to now, government has continued with the targeted fiscal measures and supportive monetary policy to counter the pandemic's impact and spillovers of the Eurasia tensions on the economy. However, these challenges we are facing now, they are posing challenges to today's economists. So as you study at university, or even those who have finished, we all face the same challenges, how to overcome, or to propose how government can overcome them. And the current multiple global shocks are testing the economic theories posted by the founding fathers. You have the Keynesian, the Stiglitz, the Sayers, and the others, including our own, who have led this economy to recovery, the late governor, Mr. Makerere. Then let's look at these recap on the founding fathers. What were they saying on different approaches to overcome such challenges? We have one of them called John Maynard Keynes. John Maynard Keynes, I know you have heard about him with his theory that if an economy investment exceeds savings, it will cause inflation. And if an economy's savings is higher than investment, it will cause a recession. And he pushed a notion that increase in spending would in fact decrease unemployment and help economic recovery. And most economies, when there is issues or less so of low demand, they try to boost the economy to make sure that there is more output and employment. But however, there are other scholars like Jean-Baptiste Say, who made the famous Say's law, which say that supply creates its own demand. So you don't need it to inject, you need to produce, and then demand will come. And these are different economists, but they apply at different levels. They may look contradicting, but different examples can be attributed to their economic theories. Then we look at others like Arthur Lewis with his famous dual sector model, which explains the growth of the developing economies in terms of labor transitions from the subsistence sector to the capitalist sector. That's largely the rural-urban migration and how it leads to growth. Yes, we have had a lot of rural-urban migration in Uganda, and we have seen demand increase in urban centers, and the production of goods and services has been focused to the demand of such sectors. We have Stiglitz. Stiglitz also said that with his famous theory of public financing, stating that an optimal supply of local public goods can be funded entirely through capture of land rents generated by those goods. And he says that taxing these rents can provide financing for the supply of those public investments. But we have seen over time governments borrowing, which means they are spending on investments beyond what they are taxing, and which means that taxation is not only for collecting revenue, but also for fiscal policy, aligning the economy back to equilibrium. So everyone will learn something. Then we come to others like Wesley Leontief. You have heard about the Leontief. It's a very popular theory up to now, who introduced the issues of input-output tables. Then this was extended by Sir Richard Stone in 1962, who developed the first social accounting matrix. And this is what we use for current analysis, except for CGE models. And also Wallace, you have heard about the Wallace law, and who says that if there are any markets and n minus one of them are in equilibrium, then the last market must also be in equilibrium. This theory helps a lot in CGE modeling. Without it, CGE modeling will be complex. So we can see that the founding fathers, though some of them are not alive now, they have left us with a basket of knowledge where we pick from and to respond to shocks like these. Then we come to our own Professor Emmanuel Mutebire, the late, who spearheaded the economic recovery of Uganda from the early 1980s. And we saw that inflation was in 200% and managed to reduce it 5%. And this has been maintained, except of recent when we have had the multiple shocks. We had floods, we had locust invasions, we had COVID-19. Now we are having the Eurasia conflict. We are also having climate change effects, and we have seen inflation a bit going up, but still is a single digit. And exchange rates have been stable over time, and lending rates, and also the reserves. And now we have a lot to learn from these. Now with these, having them in mind, let's think based on their theories. What are the pathways these shocks hit the economy? They're looking at the pathways, focusing on the macroeconomic pathways. We find that, first of all, it is disruption of global supply chain. Goods moving from China. If you buy an iPhone, let's say in Uganda, you'll find some parts are from California, some parts are from China, and assembled somewhere else. And all this, once there is a disruption in one of the supply chain, you find that even the supply of these iPhones will be affected, and the price also will be affected. And the same thing with medicine we take, we always import, and also any other crucial imports we make in the country, and also our exports. Some exports need inputs from others. The exports of flowers from Uganda, they need some other types of flowers from Kenya, which are blended and sold in Europe. So when there's an issue in Kenya, the demand or our exports of flowers will also be affected. So we are a small open economy in the global economy. So we are affected by shocks. Then we have reduced foreign incomes, which affects our exports. So when there's a war in Europe, you feel that the demand for our exports comes down as their budgets are being reallocated. So that affects our exports and it ends up affecting our exchange rate and also macroeconomic stability. Then also petroleum supply. The conflict has brought in issues like you find that the supply of petroleum from Russia to other European economies has gone down, and that means demand has to get supply from somewhere else. That's increasing global demand, and the price of petroleum has gone up. For some months, we have been buying petroleum above 6,000, and that has impacts on anyone who is producing or anyone who's moving from A to B, and also the transport margins on any commodity. When you're consuming maize in Kampala, it moved from Masindi. There's transport in it, which means the price of maize will go up, though at the farm gate, the price is still at the same level, low. So that's how we get impacted on. And also the portfolio investments which were moved to safe havens. So in the end, these impacts on the economy, for instance, in terms of increased commodity prices, reduced exports, reduced activity due to increased scarcity of intermediate inputs and demand, and also reduced tax collections, which affects the fiscal policy, and increased deficits and slowdown of the economy's capacity to generate jobs. That's how we get mixed up and affected by shocks in the rest of the world. Now, at the macroeconomic management, as you have studied at school, we have the 4 macroeconomic accounts. We have the real sector, we have the fiscal, we have the external sector, which is the balance of payment. We have the monetary account, which is the monetary policy. And all these must be in balance. And a shock in one of them affects the rest of the other accounts. And now it increases, it needs well-informed and well-skilled economists to make sure the economy remains in balance. For instance, impacts on exports and imports, the disruptions affects the balance of payment. Portfolio investments affects interest rates and balance of payments. Then petroleum prices affects the CPI and also the balance of payment. And then the reduced activity and tax collections affects fiscal and real. And also other shocks affect one or two of these accounts. So as an economist, as you study at university, it's very important to make sure you be attentive to have the knowledge, so that when you come to apply, you apply this knowledge. And all this is based on the founding fathers, what they left with us. Let's look at the empirical evidence so far. Can government's response mitigate the global effects? That's the question. There's a study which was done recently by Ministry of Finance and IGC. Largely the authors were Stephen Younger, Dr. Albert Musisi, myself, then Nicole Tunjide and Jacob and Priya Mondiang. And this study showed that in the lockdown alone, that it was a short-term effects. It showed that poverty would increase, let's say from 18.9 to 26.8. That's about 3.3 million people falling into poverty. But when there is a government response or intervention, for instance, we talk about on a sage giving some money, about 10,000 shillings to anyone who's above 65 years and above, it would reduce that poverty from 26.8 to 25.5. And this would cost only about 62.4 billion. So this shows that government interventions, when there are shocks, can impact in terms of reducing the effects of shocks. And this is a justification of why government has had a number of interventions, as I will be showing earlier. Let's look at the performance as we move towards the conclusion. Looking at the performance, how has the Ugandan economy performed in this period of shocks? Let's look at financial year 2021-2022. That begins, when we mention financial year, we mean beginning from July in the calendar year 2021, ending June calendar year 2022. How did Uganda perform? Looking at the performance, we find that over time, growth has come down in 2019-20. In 2019-20, we had locust invasions. Before locusts could go, COVID-19 came. Then after, we saw also wheat prices going up recently. And though we have these current shocks of Eurasia conflict, and also issues with the supply of cooking oil, that's palm oil, and also wheat, the performance of the economy is recovering from the 3% to about 4.7% in financial 2021-2022. And the outlook remains positive, which means the Ugandan economy, though it has been affected by shocks, these shocks, it's resilient more than a number of economies globally, because the economy, the total demand of goods and services demanded in Uganda, most of the majority are produced domestically. And that helps in making the economy more resilient. Then also, policy rates, the CBR was about 6.5% in July 2021, and this has been moved to 7.5 in June 2022. That's a few months ago. And this is largely because of the inflationary pressures. And this is imported inflation. Yeah, it's the tell the difference between in 1980s or 1990s, the inflation we had was caused by the domestic factors, but this inflation is being caused by foreign factors. Yeah, and also the private sector credit, the commercial bank lending rates for shillings has remained a bit stable. It's about 18.57% and compared to 18.95, which means it has gone down a bit. And this is good for investment, which means you can borrow cheaper to invest in your own economy. And also, private sector credit has increased by 8.9% compared with the previous year. Yeah, which shows that there is hope in the investments of the private sector to boost growth in the economy. The exchange rate has also remained stable, though it appreciated a bit by 2.4 percentage points. And that's from about 3.572 to about from 3.661 in the previous year. Largely, this was driven by tourism, which was performing well, coffee exports, transfers to NGOs, foreign direct investments, and also investments in the oil and gas sector, and also loan disbursements to government. Then exports, Uganda exports receipts dropped by 26.2%, following a decline in maize and tobacco exports, though coffee earnings have gone up. Coffee exports increased by 55.4%. That's a very high increase. And this being our main exporter, it's a positive outlook. And this was largely driven by increase in the price of coffee globally. Then FDI, that's a foreign direct investments. Following the final investment decision in oil and gas sector, we have seen more inflows in FDI, which grew by 32.4%. Remittances went down in the current previous financial year, largely due to where our Ugandans are going abroad. They are also being affected by these global shocks. And however, the remittances have been consistent, and this has supported the households, especially in these economic hard times. Then the balance of payment, we had a surplus balance of payment in financial year 2021-2022, which is good for the accumulation of reserves. And you know the importance of reserves, the ones we mentioned in the months of imports, they help to keep the economy stable. In the case of deficits, reserves help in supporting the economy to make sure that you can sustain your imports so that you don't go into a crisis. On the fiscal side, the fiscal deficit was about 7.4%, and debt remains sustainable and is projected to remain sustainable following the implementation of the domestic revenue mobilization strategy and also the production of oil and gas sector, which is coming on. Economic activity is GDP was about 4.6%, which is an increase compared to the previous financial year, which was about 3.5%. And this is a good performance in the period of economic shocks globally. Other economies are performing poorly, especially developed economies, but Uganda is developing, is instead expanding, largely because of government interventions, which I will list in a few slides. Let's look at government interventions which have sustained growth up to this level. Government has maintained macroeconomic stability. As we saw the 4 macro accounts, government is consistently checking all the macro accounts, making sure they are in tandem with what would bring macroeconomic stability. And on a daily basis, government is doing all it can do to keep the economy stable. Then government also embarked on payment of arrears. These are like those who supply to government and money which is not yet paid. Government is paying that money, and the private sector is using that money to invest. And also providing seed capital to special groups like the youth funds, women entrepreneurship fund, a Myoga talent support scheme, and others, and also the rollout of the social assistance grant. This is the money given to the elderly people who are above 80 years. All over the whole country, whoever is above 80 years is qualified to receive this money. And those in the pilot districts, the age is about 65 years and above, and these are 15 districts. Then also relief to the affected population, like food, those who are affected by climate change, and also the Small Business Recovery Fund, and also programs that support agricultural productivity, like the distribution of seedlings, provision of social safety nets for climate change effects, and also formalizing of businesses. Government has put up a project called Informality Management for Compliance Resilience. And this you're working with Makerere University, the MOOBs, and it's working to make sure that small businesses are formalized so that they can easily be identified to be supported by government moving forward. These are envisaged to boost private sector investments and employment in the country, as evidenced by in the growth economic activity which has been expanding in the recent past. Let's look at the newest, which is the parish development model. The parish development model for the economists who are state university, this is key for you to make sure that you have information on this, and you make sure that your communities can benefit from this. And this was launched by His Excellency the President in February 2022. And the overall objective is to sustainably transform subsistence households by easing access to appropriate financing. For this to work for subsistence household, there must be an enterprise to be financed. This must be reinforced by the right business mindset, prosper enterprise valuation, which is called Kibaro, means you calculate like a proposal. This is where I put the money, this is the money I get, and this is the profit, and this I'll be paying back. And know how to undertake the chosen enterprises, and also the disbursement of the parish revolving fund to the parish development model circles in financial 2022-23 is subject to the following criteria. The PDM circle must correspond to a parish on the list of gazetted parishes. PDM circle must be fully registered under the Cooperative Society Act. PDM circle must have a bank account, and the PDM circle must have signed a PRF financing agreement with the local government. All these conditions are very easy to do, and a number of districts have already finalized these. And in regard to the progress, the Ministry of Local Government has provided accession forms for majority of the districts, confirming PDM, the PDM is ready, the circles are ready. Accession forms, these are forms to show that this district has these circles, and these circles are ready to receive the money. And already the money has been released. That's 100 million per circle. And in the first quarter for this financial year, that's from that's July, August, and September, 25 million were released to the PDM circles in Q1. And the next quarter, this is the second quarter up to December, 25 million will also be released to each of the circles which have been approved. And then the third quarter, that's January to March, 50 million will be released to the same circles. So that makes about 100 million per circle. The utilization of the revolving fund is provided for in the operational guidelines. The funds are a capitalization grant to the PDM circles for purpose of lending to viable income generating activities in the production, processing, marketing, and storage of agriculture. I made this slide detailed to make sure that the personal information, how you can access this money, to make sure you can come out of our communities can come out of poverty, especially this period of shocks. And members can apply for this money through their circles, and also the interest is about 6% per annum, which is the lowest. You can't have it easily in Uganda. Mostly, I think money lenders give this interest monthly, but this is annually. And the PDM circles executive committee shall be responsible for the approval and disbursement of the PRF loans to borrowers. So the money is closer to you. Then outlook. In the outlook, when you look at oil prices in the second half of 21-22, that's owing to the recovery of global economic coupled with the war-related trade and production disruption caused by Russia-Ukraine conflict. We found that we see that in the first half, the oil price is about 73.9 US dollars per barrel, and this increased to 114 by June this year, and making an annual average of about 87.6 US dollars per barrel. And the price has gone up, and we envisage that the price is likely to remain above $60 per barrel moving forward. And also the disruption in the commodity flows of the Ukraine conflict if it persists. But we see recently the sanctions on Russia being a bit reduced, and that one is a positive outlook to the oil prices maybe moving forward. Then regarding coffee, when you look at the International Coffee Organization composite price indicator, it tends upwards to an average of about 188.9 in the financial 2021-2022 from an average of 118, and in financial 2020-2021. This indicator shows that the prices of coffee are likely to remain up, and which means that we are likely to get more revenue from the coffee sales or coffee exports, and that has a positive impact in the balance of payments. And also we find that in the financial sector, the stock of outstanding private sector credit is growing. That's by 8.9% previous year. And also we see the lending rates are also coming down, which is a positive for the economy. Regarding economic growth, we find the global economic activity is anticipated to slow down to 3.2% 2022 from 6.1 2021. And this is attributed to the 2-year lockdowns of COVID-19 and also the conflicts, the geopolitical conflict between Russia and Ukraine. And also, however, advanced economies are expected to have the largest hit of this effect. When you look at Uganda's outlook, the economy is projected to grow between 5% and 5.5% in this current financial year, 2022 and 2023. And the drivers include government intervention, the capacity development model, the Small Business Recovery Fund, the EMIOGA, and also these are likely to boost investments and demand. And also the final investment decision in the oil and gas sector is anticipated to boost manufacturing, construction, and service sector. Regarding the service sector, the subsectors which were locked down or affected by the lockdowns of COVID-19 are also recovering. For instance, tourism, entertainment, education. In the agriculture sector, forecast of rainfall looks favorable in future, according to the Uganda Meteorological Authority, and also government initiative to raise the quality of agriculture inputs, extension services, improved irrigation, provide a positive outlook for agriculture. In regard to trade, EAC block, we added, Congo was added and providing a bigger market share for exports, and that provides a good outlook. So the outlook for Uganda is positive. Inflation is also positive. In the medium term, is projected to be within 5%, though this calendar year may go to 7.3%. And also looking at the financial sector, the CBR sent by the central bank is inclined to make sure to have prices stable or come back to the target of 5%. And we see private sector credit is going up, which is positive for economic growth. And the external sector exchange rate remains stable, and also the balance of payment is being a surplus. And given the sustained high prices of coffee, the current account balance is likely to remain strong. And also we see tourism remittances and product investments strengthening, and that is very good for the outlook. The fiscal sector also, the outlook is good, given that we have the domestic revenue mobilization strategy and fiscal consolidation in this financial year, and which is likely to support the economy to make sure that the deficit is harnessed. And also the budgetary policy has been set to prioritize growth-friendly fiscal consolidation to guarantee macroeconomic stability and sustainability. Also, fiscal policy is prioritizing investment in the sectors that have greater multiplier impact on other sectors and boosting the efficiency of public sector investments in order to enhance returns on public investments. In conclusion, I'll conclude with a few words. I'll just say that increased investments and production in the oil and gas sector, as well as improved agricultural productivity and agro-processing, are expected to enhance both agriculture and industry sectors, boosting economic growth to between 5 and 5.5% in the current financial year. And the non-oil GDP is expected to average between 6 and 7% over the medium term. And also, I mentioned that largely the drivers are likely to be government interventions in enhancing the quality of agricultural inputs, agricultural extension services, improving irrigation schemes, continuing to invest in industrial parks and economic free zones, recovery of the private sector activity and investment, ongoing government infrastructure investments, operationalizing of the oil and gas sector, and others like the Paris development model. Thank you very much, and God bless you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Asiimwe. This has been very exciting and very informative. The most exciting part was where you talked about the different economists and the forefathers, the economic theories that guide policy formulation and creating solutions for our economic challenges. As the Open Economists Uganda and also the greater Rethinking Economics global movement, we are always encouraging the pluralism in economics, where our thinking is that we need to find solution in the diverse economic solutions that are available through the different economic theories and teachings that are available beyond the neoclassical economics, which is the mainstream economics. And this is very good to know that actually it is happening. And also for the students and also the young economists that we're working with, this is one of the things that we're very passionate about. I think also one of the very salient factor within the discussion today has been the impact of how the global economy impacts on the economy as Uganda, looking at basically the economic geography, where you're looking at global value chains, whereby an economy cannot stand independent of other economies. So this is very good and informative, and also maybe learning of the government interventions and programs that are available to correct some of the economic shocks that we have faced in the last 2 years. And I think also the outlook looks very positive. I hope that we could achieve that as a country and also achieve better. Right now, I think if we have any comments or questions, we can still put them forward in the chat. Maybe